Hi, this is the second video in a set of 3 dedicated to my 2022 performance patch. In this video, I'll walk you through basically what it's like to carry this system into a venue and how I tune the system, how I actually get the first piece set up and ready, and even how I have to transition to each piece. I'll give you kind of like the down low on how that all happens. So the first aspect, of course, is I walk in and I plug everything in. My system remains patched for this entire tour. This case does allow me to close with the patch intact. Whenever I have everything plugged in and ready, the case is unfolded, everything ready to go, I'll turn it on and I'll let it sit as is for like 10 to 20 minutes as the analog oscillators, of which there are 2, settle into the climate of the venue. Occasionally the climate changes, gets more humid, or the temperature changes. It gets cooler because they turn on the AC once audience members arrive. So sometimes I have to tune all over again, or do my best to anticipate what's going to happen and wait to tune. So it's a bit of a juggling act. But anyway, once I power on, and after this 15 minutes or so of letting it tune up, this is what I do. So the first thing I do is I turn on skew on the mimeophone, because this is not saved on power down, power up. And then I just turn the skew knob a little bit back to where I generally want it, to reset it. Then I turn DPO-A oscillator into LFO mode. Then I will revert my Renee in the global settings. I'll revert it, which I actually added this little marker here to help me remember that that's the state that does that reverts. So reverting is just reverting all the states back to what you saved. You shouldn't need to do this on power up, but I found that it sometimes messes up, so I revert it. And then I need to set the gain staging on Morphogene. This is the 4th and final thing I have to do. So I hold record, press shift, go to the green level, which was just pressing it one time. And I can go ahead and hit record. Very briefly, I use Morphogene as a granular machine effect. And on the SD card, there are these settings you probably know about, and one of them is to turn off the ability to do sound-on-sound recording. So since I turn that off, anything that comes into the Morphogene when you are recording records over the last stuff. It completely gets rid of the previous things. So it records over it, and that's really useful for granular stuff. Alright, so that's the last thing I do. Now I can tune. So for tuning, I actually had to think about this in advance and build a way of doing this into the patch. There's a state dedicated to it. Luckily, there's a mode in the IntelliGel scales that makes it easy with that module. And then some other stuff I built into the patch, which you'll see. Alright, so state 16 is the tuning state for Renee. And then if I hold interval, I will go to the tuning state or tuning setting in scale. So let's hear this. So as you can hear, there's some rhythmic stuff and other things that would make this potentially hard to tune with. So what I do is I built this in. I'll show you. If I flip this switch, latches on, turn this down a bit. And now we just hear the 4MS ensemble oscillator droning away. Okay, I'm going to change some knobs to make this more easy to work with. Get rid of spread. Bring scales down to where it's just playing the root note. Get rid of some of the harmonics, at least right now. Get rid of the detuning, because obviously that's not very helpful when tuning. And, oh, I see one other thing I have to turn off. Here we go. And I'll go ahead and also turn off my effects. Just keep it simple. Okay, now Oh, I also have to unplug this guy. Okay, this is some modulation that is just running. I need to unplug it. It's kind of distracting. Now I have a pure tone that I can tune to. What is this note? Last time I checked, it was close to an E flat, but it doesn't really matter. As long as it sounds okay, I'll start there. I'll bring in the DPO to tune to this, to the 4MS ensemble oscillator. So here's the DPO. Oh, I should say, so what this knob is usually used for is applying an audio signal and applying expansion or compression, but with nothing plugged in. The input is normaled here, and this will allow some voices to just kind of, be turned up without their envelope applied, like on this output, or on the level input, I mean. So we'll just hear the signal without its envelope. Here's the difference. Pretty cool, right? All right. Now I'm gonna tune this. I'm gonna bring down the Beast chalkboard to 0 volts. This just changes the octave. It's pretty in tune. Got lucky. Let's just make it out of tune and retune it. Sometimes it helps to have some more harmonics. Usually I can get it right in the sweet spot. That's pretty good. Next up, I will do rings. Rings, the way, I won't go into detail, but the way that you have to get this working as a voice means that the striking of rings, like the plucking, is integral to the voice, so it's kind of difficult to use dynamics the same way, as you can hear. So instead, I'm just going to run it, just going to turn up the level knob. Monophonic mode. People overcomplicate how difficult it is to tune rings. It's not that hard, if you get to know it. Seems pretty close. Next up is Mangrove, the bass voice. I'm going to use Mangrove's air knob to just turn it up where we're not hearing the envelope anymore, so it just drones away. I'm going to get rid of some of this filter stuff and open up the filter. That's pretty in tune. I tune it down an octave because it's mostly 2 octaves. I let it be that much lower because that's generally where I'm using it during the performance. Sometimes I go ahead and hear all of them, see what it's like together. And you could hear they sound pretty in tune, especially for this a modular synthesizer. Pretty in tune. So before I set up the patch for the first piece, I should show you my performance notes. And my performance notes include really important information to help myself out when performing, of course, but it's also kind of like a score. And so this first page just includes various important pieces of information, such as like the cable, the color coding. And I never even mentioned that this tour was really like in support of my new album called Impromptus and Isolation, which came out mid-June on Sound is Language. And for the release show, which was the second show out of the stretch of shows, I collaborated with Paloma Kopp, an incredible video artist and musician, and she works with obsolete video gear, all pretty much analog, I believe. And she has hacked it and modified it so that it can receive CV signals. And I had to create a little note on what signals I was sending her. And they were all like really important signals for the music. Some other important things on this first page include like the approximate knob positions of the oscillators, so that I could retune more quickly if a knob got bumped drastically. I have info on the tuning banks, and I might have already mentioned the color coding, and even some silly but important things like remove your mask when performing. Things that you can easily skip when your mind is really busy running a show and performing and setting up and all of those things. The next page is general positions for all states. Really, I didn't look at these first two pages much at all once the tour started, but just general positions, and some of these really did mostly stay in place during the performance. That's just how this patch evolved. And then finally, we get to the pieces. And there are 7 different pieces that comprise this set. And each one has like kind of a nickname that helps me remember what it is, a working title, if you will. It helps me remember what it kind of sounds like. It sort of, yeah. And it also tells me important information like the states that are being used in Renee and Tempe, and also the presets inside of Ellis, and then each important thing I need to change. So like these are all knob positions. So yeah, it's a text-based score, but this helped me navigate to the different pieces. And as you might expect, it's a modular synth. Sometimes I did not get something that I had really heard before. It didn't sound quite like the piece that I had developed, and that was okay. I just improvised with that. But a lot of the times I got pretty close. So I walked you through my performance notes and how I tune. Now let's get ready for the first track. So I usually do this in headphones, although silent at first, and then I bring in voices and tweak. So I'm going to do that as I normally would. So here I go. I'm just getting marbles in the correct mode and adjusting its length. Now I'm doing things for the DPO voice. Adjusting envelope, timbre controls. Making sure a few things that aren't supposed to be on but might be on from the last performance, making sure they are not still on. Still doing everything for DPO. Okay, that's good. Almost. All right. Rings, mono red. There we go. Bright, dampen. All right. I already plugged this back in. Going to bring the scale to the right place on the ensemble oscillator. A little spread, a little cross FM for this first track. And nothing on the other two. A little detuning. I guess I already did that in between takes for this video. That should be pretty good. Offset off. Yes. Yeah. Mangrove has a few things I have to do. Long decay, fix the cutoff on the Q pass and modulation, Q. There's a few things here. Alright, looking good. And then percussion, I just make sure it's really short for a clicky quality. I'm gonna start with some high pitches. I kind of make some of these decisions on the fly as I'm setting up and adjust to the sound system during sound check too. Yeah, fully wet at first. I hear some of it already coming through, making some noise. Oh, we'll see what that's like here in a bit. And then it's on to the effects side of thing. Mimeophone starts with its yellow zone with some light negative CV, some micro rate modulation coming in here, and high repeats. You'll see why later. And then Morphogene, reverse pale white. Where are you at, pale white? There we go. And some other small changes. Cool. Now, let's start to bring in the sound so I can like see if I'm close or not. Oh yeah, I forgot to press this. So I hear the envelope again on the ensemble oscillator. Still working here. Takes a little bit of time. Oh, I know. See? Well, you got to see it on video here. Forgot to take the scales out of its tuning setting. There we go. Now I gotta kind of readjust a bit. Ooh, I can tell it's too fast. The tempo is too quick. This is why I get the first track set up. Here we go. Kind of. Okay, we'll bring in more voices and see if we have it. That weirder like bong bong is Q pass with high Q, mangrove going through the Q pass. So Mimeophone is doing a lot of weird feedback stuff, so that's why I have the repeats up high. It can get really harsh, so I turn color down, filter out some of those higher frequencies. Let's bring in the percussion, which is very granularized. Tricky word. So, I'm saving a performance for later, but that gets my first track going. Cool. So now the first piece is rolling along, all the voices are present, and I'll improvise with this material for a while. And then at some point, I'll hit the next state. There are actually 2 states per track. 2 states and 2 presets per track. The first state obviously is the first section of the work, and the second state is not always the second section, but it changes various parameters and just helps me have more variation. And then I'll transition to the next track. So let's go ahead and go to this next state. Let's change some things, kind of develop it a little bit, kind of move it along. So at some point, I'll decide to officially move on to the next track. Maybe I'll stop the clock and make any last minute changes. Stop the clock, and I can't guarantee this is going to be great, but usually the pause is not this long, and I'll just start the next track. So here goes something. Very messy version, but hopefully I get to this piece that I call free jazz, or that's its working title. Hopefully I arrive there and it sounds okay. And then I explore it. Eventually, I'll move on to the next state. How I normally transition out of this one is I've done a few things, but generally I bring all melodic voices down and I make the drums are going through beads, as you might recall, and I make beads fully wet. So it ends up sounding something like this. And even though this is going to, the sort of practical purpose of this is to cover up my transition, I will also still make sure to perform this as well. I'll still like tweak parameters of this. And so it's time to get the third piece ready, which I nicknamed Melancholic Shimmer Sparkle Stutter. Might have missed something, but I think I got it all. And I'll switch to the next one. Like, I'll switch the state and then bring in the primary voice while simultaneously getting rid of the drums that you're hearing. And sometimes that moment is really, really cool. That one was okay. Alright, Melancholic Shimmer Sparkle Stutter. I'm searching for you now. This is sounding pretty familiar, yeah. I love working on this piece live, exploring this zone. It's quite an emotional place, and I can really spend some time here, which you'll see hopefully in the performance video if it goes well. Let's go ahead and move on to the next state. Oh, you know what? I'm going to switch back to the first state. I forgot to bring in rings. Very important part of this song. Alright, you get the idea, I think. Let's switch to the next state. This state has a few different things happening, but it also changes the melody of rings, which you'll hear in just a moment. It goes higher up, it's a little more expressive. Yeah. Okay, once the time comes, I've gotten out of this piece a variety of ways. One of them that I wrote down on the score is intense dark drumming. Well, I already did drumming in this set once, but it usually sounds quite different, but who knows, maybe it'll be a similar transition, but let's check it out. Let's try it. Yeah, it could be something like this, perhaps. Alright, nonetheless, let's keep moving here. I need to get to the next piece, which working title is Dark Glitch Melodic. State 7878. Preset 78. Alright, let's do it. Drum mode. We're hearing the drums, so that will change the drums a little bit, which is like built-in variation. Yeah. Just doing all the things I have to do to get ready. This drum sounds quite different than usual. Let's mess it up. Alright, transition complete. Alright. Almost made a mistake there, which is okay, but I would have had to deal with it. Would have had to improvise with it. This feels slightly fast. This is sounding pretty close to what I like. Eventually this voice comes in. I have to watch the cycle, the speed of the cycle on the maths LED. I like to have a little bit of timbre modulation via the modulation bus here, so the LFO is controlling that as well. Eventually I switch to the next state when it feels right. A little different. I want to try it again. I normally won't try again live, obviously. Let's see. Here we go, here we go. Doing this stuff over here with math speed of the envelope, so fun. Also stopping the clock. It's getting a little messy, but let's try to move to the next section. This one has a very specific thing. Morphogene fully wet. Let's try it. When it's fully wet, I'm going to transition behind the scenes, but it'll still be recording, so we'll hear that transition in a really weird way. Alright, here we go. tricky to do this via video. The pressure is on. Well, hopefully it's close. Then what I do is I shift into the next one. Have to switch banks in Ellis. And let's see if it works. Yeah, I actually like to hear the speed change on this. Green reverse. Alright, that was a little messy, but I eventually arrived at this. A little bit more like this. This piece is called Sad Country, and I love that name, so it's one name that might stick if I record this and release it at some point. So, well, let's see. Let's bring in some of the other voices. Actually, in this piece, this is the way rings come in is essential. You'll see. Love it, it's like a guitarist. Ooh, perfect time to bring in the bass. Oh, I failed. Yeah, that happens. Didn't have the volume up on the vortices. Hey, that's okay. Gives me another chance, right? This time, you might have noticed I did it a while ago, is I stopped the clock with the foot pedal, with the sustain pedal, and that created a kind of a weird little closing gesture to the rings then I quickly turned down the volume. So check it out. I'll do it one more time. All right, pedal going down. Just a little messiness. Now let's try that bass idea again. Yeah, if you're listening on headphones, you might hear a low rumble now. Okay, bringing that back down. Another thing I like to do is to open up this sound, but with, that's a DPO, but with rings as it comes in. Let's try it. Pretty cool. At some point, this piece really explodes. I mean, it just really builds up and it goes a little crazy. Let's get it there in kind of a rushed manner just to make it through. All right. that's how I transition to the next piece. So we have a drone style transition. Have some internal feedback going on in the QPOS. That is how I transition to the final track, Blitz, which is the first. So it's a fast track, as the name suggests, and it is quite intense. It's a very intense closer. Let's just hurry up and get it to there. Turn off the FM bus and the follow. I'm close. Oh, you know. All right, you never know until you get there. You never know until you give it a try. So, let's try it. And that is the transition to the final track. This track is actually quite a challenge to perform. Getting the tempo right is always a challenge. But this is one of the track that the sustain pedal really comes into play, choking the tempo in various points, but right here's one, as I'm trying to get to the next section of this work. I love that. Alright, so eventually I pause the tempo again, and instead of like letting go to create that chaos, I quickly switch to the next bit, mute most things except for the ensemble oscillator and the bass, and I try to get the tempo adjusted real quick. See if I can do it. Somewhere in here, hopefully, is good. Drums in slowly. So, before I do this fully, let me explain. Missed Opportunities by Cute Lab, based here in Brooklyn, is a gate subtractor, and I'm slowly, via this channel of maths, channel 3, increasing the density so that it allows more of the gates to pass through. So hear how that affects this buildup of the drums. Eventually, I like to close with kind of like a rock band closing coda thing. It's almost humorous, this just big ending. It's like the band just won't stop kind of thing. Pretty common even in classical music, right? Like, when is the Beethoven symphony gonna end? The coda just keeps unfolding. Anyway, something like this. Oops, usually the drums are gone. Well, a little mistake there. But usually what happens is some stuff is kind of stuck in Morphogene, and it kind of slowly goes away. It's pretty cool, I love it. But but that works. That could be the closing, maybe without the drum still going. And yeah, it's like a big ending to the performance. And so hopefully, you know, by the time that performs, I've gone to a lot of different places, and there's been a lot of different moods explored. And you know, it's really important in this performance for me to explore a lot of different territory and to hopefully have an emotional impact on the listener. That's it. That's a rundown of how a performance will go and how I navigate from musical piece to musical piece, how I transition. So I hope you enjoyed it and took away something from it. And next up in the third video will be an actual performance from beginning to end. Alright, so goodbye for now.